If you've been a longtime listener to Flipping 50, you've heard episodes discussing hormones before this and hormone therapy options to fix your hormones. But stay put because you haven't heard this. No one has talked about this on Flipping 50 before. In all the episodes that I've discussed and similar discussions about micronutrients that I've had with clients, it's never come up regarding how to fix your hormones. So stay tuned. And if you have chronic fatigue and think most doctors don't get it, we'll erase that thought before we're finished, if not by the time I introduce my guest. There is something to be said about the understanding of a professional who not only has the science and the training, but also is able to put that into practical steps with the empathy that comes only from knowing I've been there. Exercise will be a part of your healing, though not the first part. Movement will be a bigger part to start, just movement daily. But when you are ready, for those of you who are suffering from chronic fatigue, the 5-day flip may be a good starting point. So you start with 5 days of very short exercise that I do right along with you. We'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. We're talking about something we haven't discussed in over 2 million downloads in 9 years of podcasting today. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top struggles and concerns, but most of all, we hope to inspire you that there is a solution, there is an answer, and there may be a different way to aging than you'd ever allowed yourself to think about before. I share what to eat, how to move, and how to change your mindset so you can have the energy and the vitality that you want, need, and deserve in this second and better half. Let's dive in to this episode. Yvonne, thanks so much for being here.
It is my pleasure. It's great to connect.
Yes, it is. And okay, so we have to let listeners in on the real secret that we're going to have a hard time staying off the topic of golf and being golf moms and your about to be famous husband. Probably we should be talking about. We should probably try to get his autograph before our things go live.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So go ahead and tell listeners so they all know what we're talking about. He just qualified, and probably as we release this, it will be maybe he's playing or played.
Right. My husband is a lifelong golfer, and he played in a local event to qualify for the U.S. Senior Open, which is for professionals and amateurs, anybody over the age of 50. And he made it. He was the low man at the qualifier for 80 people for 2 spots. And so he gets to go play at the U.S. Senior Open in June in Pennsylvania. So with, all those over 50 professional golfers. So it's going to be a blast.
That is so cool. Awesome. Loving it. I have a good friend who I will be seeing this summer at a class reunion who's been pro and traveled a lot. So I'll have to ask him if he's going or what his participation level is. But anyway, we should probably get off the topic of golf and on to other things. First of all, let's set everybody up because this is your first visit and that sets you up for you'll probably be asked back. So tell everybody about your journey from traditional OBGYN, as I read to everybody in your bio, to becoming a functional medicine doctor.
Well, there was really a few things that led. I was a dyed-in-the-wool, true blue, traditional medicine doctor. I had to get knocked over the head a few times before I realized that what I was doing wasn't working. And one of the things was that, women confide in their OBGYN, and I wasn't able to really help them with their issues, fatigue, brain fog, weight gain. And it really tore at my heart that I couldn't help these people with the traditional, here's birth control pills, here's an antidepressant, here's something else. So that kind of opened my eyes a little bit, but like I said, it took me a while to really realize that I was on the wrong track. And then it started what really put me down the path was my own health issues. Doing OBGYN, I've been in OBGYN for over 20 years. At one point, about 10 years ago, I was really, really struggling. My health started to decline. I think it had to do with exhaustion. You're working really hard, burning the candle at both ends, not doing fun stuff, but just work. And I started to really not recognize myself. I didn't like who I was. I wasn't the wife, the mother, the friend, the boss that I wanted to be. And I just knew that something had to change. And at one point, it got so bad that I had to close part of my practice. I quit doing obstetrics and concentrated on gynecology only. And then the failure of the traditional medicine became even more severe because when you're delivering babies, that's a happy time and you're helping women through that. But then when I would stop delivering the babies and I was doing the gynecology only, it was just so obvious that wow, this is not working. The traditional medicine approach is not working.
Wow. Okay. So I also want to know this. We have talked about hormones, as you might imagine, with other functional doctors
Sure.
a number of times. And of course, our listeners know, if they're doing the fitness, they're following that, then they decide, yes, okay, I do need to also have some fitness nutrition tweaks to what I'm doing. If they're doing that and they're sleeping, those are probably the top three things people come to me and or end up getting once they get here. But they then realize it may take in some outside assistance. They may need some extra. So we've talked about hormones, and listeners, you know this too from previous listens and episodes, but never, ever have we talked about receptors. So when you say it takes more than hormones to fix your hormones, dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for asking. I mean, that's my passion because hormones are messengers and they do their job when they attach to the receptor, like a hand in a glove or a key in a lock. And so if you have hormones, but your receptors aren't working right, then you have all the symptoms of hormone deficiency. And this was one of my aha moments too, because people would say to me, something's wrong. I don't feel good. It must be my hormones. Right. So I would check their hormones and their levels were fine, but they had all the symptoms of, hormone deficiencies, whether it was thyroid or estrogen or testosterone. And so it really was like an eye opener that there's something going on that people are missing, and you can't just keep piling hormones and hormones and hormones on top of on top of each other. You have to make sure that the whole body is ready, and it really comes down to the cell membrane. Hormone receptors live on the cell membrane, and cell membranes are made out of fat. And these fats get damaged when we have toxic exposures from inflammation. So if you picture saran wrap. Saran wrap is flexible but sturdy. And that's what the cell membranes are supposed to be like. They're made out of fat and they're stabilized by cholesterol and they're flexible and they're sturdy. But what happens to saran wrap when you hold it over an open flame? It gets crinkly and crunchy and it's like melted plastic. And that's exactly what happens to the fats in your cell membrane when they get oxidized by inflammation from toxins. And so if you have these hormone receptors sitting on the cell membrane and they're covered in melted plastic because the fats are all melted and damaged, then the hormones can't access the receptor and you feel horrible. And you can take all the best hormones in the world, but if you don't have healthy cell membranes and healthy hormone receptors, then your hormones won't work.
Okay, so two questions then that we should be asking. One is, how do we know it's our receptors? And two, how do we heal them if they're damaged?
Great question. If a lot of times people will, like, if it's thyroid or if it's estradiol, hormone replacement, testosterone, if you have symptoms, but the testing shows that your hormone levels are not that far off, well, then it's very likely a receptor problem. And
Got it.
one of the problems with testing, and this is why people should see a functional medicine doctor, is that if you just go to someone who looks at quote unquote normal range, that's an awful thing. Normal range is horrible because it covers 90% of the population. So either when someone says everything's, if someone's wondering, is it my hormones that are off or is it the receptors that are the problem? Well, the first thing to do is get tested. And then make sure that whoever's interpreting your test understands the difference between normal range and optimum, because there's a huge difference there. And then if your labs really are, if the tests really are in normal range, but you don't feel well, then it's something else. It's something deeper. It's probably a hormone receptor issue. And unfortunately, there's no test for that, because you'd have to do like a very uncomfortable biopsy and have somebody that knew how to evaluate the cell membrane look to see if your cell membranes were damaged. But knowing what I know now about how physiology and chemistry and health all work together, I just know that that's such an important thing, and that so many people have this as an issue that I just expect it.
And is there something that is this lifestyle habits? Is this daily habits, what we eat, how we sleep? Or is there something more that has to be done to reconcile damaged receptors?
All of the above, of course. So if we talk about like that, the fat, the melted fats, right? The melted plastic. It's like someone's taking a flamethrower. When you have heavy metal toxicity, mold toxicity, chemical toxicity, we live really in a toxic soup, right? When these toxins we get exposed to these toxins, it's like someone's taking a flamethrower and melting the fats in your cell membrane. And so the first thing that we want to do is turn off the flamethrower, right? So we have to take control of what we have control over and work on reducing our toxic load. And then we look at how do we help the body remove the melted plastic. So there's things that can be done that encourage the removal of abnormal cells and abnormal fats from your cell membrane. And that's the demolition. Everybody knows when you remodel, you have to do demolition before you put the healthy stuff in or the new stuff in. And so then providing the healthy fats for the cell membrane is very important. So that's where the nutrition comes in. And the sleep, you mentioned sleep, lifestyle, absolutely, because sleep is when your body repairs. So you have to sleep in order to have the time to do the repair work. You have to turn off the flamethrower by reducing your toxic load. And that has to do with reducing exposure and encouraging the removal of the toxins that are hiding there, right? Because you deal with this a lot, people who have stubborn weight, right?
Right.
Why can't I lose weight? And it's not eat less and exercise more.
Right.
If you're toxic, the toxins are buried in your fat.
Mm-hmm. And then your body
doesn't want to release.
Yeah.
Your body doesn't want to release the fat, because with the fat comes all those toxins. So you have to do it carefully.
Okay, so I want to address something. If we'll back up a second, because I think everybody logically listening can say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then the toxicity and exposure to toxicity and giving up toxins, I think it's tricky. And I honestly think we bury this within the, oh, yeah, we need to do that. But because we can't see it, we can't feel it when we're getting exposed, and we may be habitually attached to some of the things that are toxic. Talk to me about that. I mean, do you go through that with your patients when you're taking them through, this program of downloading and getting rid of toxins? I mean, like, removing them from your life, in some ways, people are very attached to those things that expose them. Yes?
They can be. We grew up, right? We grew up
Yep.
thinking that the government was looking out for us, and if the EPA says it's not harmful, then it's got to be okay. And they wouldn't sell it or make it if it was really that bad. And so we grew up thinking that somebody else was looking out for us, and that as long as they said it's okay, then it can't be harming us. But the problem with that is that I know that this is going off topic a little bit, but that for instance, the Environmental Protection Agency, when they come out with these guidelines as to, oh well, at for instance, lead, at levels of lead at less than 5 parts per billion are not harmful. Well, that's according to the normal healthy person, the average healthy person. Well, I don't know who that average healthy person is. And that it's also not considering the fact that, what if you have a little bit of lead and a little bit of mercury and a little bit of arsenic, and then you put glyphosate or Roundup exposure on top of it, and then you put some other chemical on top of it. And so it's really your total toxic load. And I think of that as a bucket. And so if your bucket overflows, you're sick and your hormone receptors are broken and your cell membranes are damaged. And it doesn't have to be, it can be either one massive exposure to something, or it can be a little bit of a lot of exposures. And that's where people get fooled by thinking, oh yeah, well, I don't do it that often and I don't get that much in my lead level. If they get these toxins tested, nothing was really that alarmingly high. But if you do testing, multiple moderates equals one massive exposure too. And so that's the thing, is you have to be able to realize that what you can't see can hurt you, and that you have to be in control of your own health. You can't rely on other people and agencies to tell you what's safe or not, because they don't know you. And you're not the average healthy person. If you have other issues going on, then you're more susceptible to toxins. And there's genetic issues where people can be more susceptible to toxins. And so we also can't live in a bubble, and we can't be afraid, right? So you have to look at, what do you have control over and what do you not have control over? And I'm pretty practical, because I want to do what I have control over, and things that maybe don't massively disrupt my life. So we have control over what we put in our mouth, what we put on our skin, what we clean our house with, and what we spray in our yard. And that's about it. We don't have control over what anybody else does. But so there's there's these ways that you can say, okay, well, let me look at the ingredients of what I wash my hair with. Oh my goodness, it's got artificial fragrance and phthalates and other things. Those are all chemicals. And so we can, there's a website, Environmental Working Group, that did all this research where they look at non-toxic hairspray, non-toxic shampoo, non-toxic fragrance, and they rate them all. And so just making those changes by saying, okay, I'm going to go on this website, I'm going to look at the raw materials of, read the labels of what I use. This is what I do with my patients in my practice. And then go on there and find some alternatives. And you can still wear makeup, you can still wear fingernail polish, you can still do these things, but try to use products that aren't laden with the toxins.
I love that.
Same with food, right? You grow your own food, eat organic. That Environmental Working Group has a list called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, where they look at the toxin, the produce that is the most heavy laden in toxins. And if it makes the Dirty Dozen list, don't eat it or buy organic. And if it's on the Clean 15, then save your money and get the conventional. But so those kind of tweaks, you can still live a really productive, normal, happy, healthy life, feel beautiful, do all the things, but you just have to be a little more mindful.
So good. And love those steps. And we're going to put, for everybody, we'll put those resources, by the way, in the show notes if you're not familiar. But I know we've talked about that before. And then sometimes I think you walk away from a podcast and think, what are the things I can do today? And maybe those types of digging into the research and going to, EWG kind of falls off the radar. So we'll put it in there again. And I challenge all of you to, leave me a message in the show notes later and tell me that you went and you took one or two products that you use every single day. Because do you agree, Yvonne, that those
Absolutely.
that little bit of shampoo you use every day? It's
Yeah.
exposure. It's like an IV drip. Why do we do that? Because we need it. Yeah.
Baby steps in the right direction will get you to your destination. So, we just need to, like I said, what do I have control over? And what doesn't disrupt my life 100% upside down, and what am I willing to do? And do those things. It makes a difference over time. It makes a huge difference.
Love it. And I know you've said, and my listeners will agree, three of the most common concerns you see in your patients that I hear in comments, and how can you help me with this during the menopause transition, or fatigue, weight gain, and if not weight gain, redistribution of weight
Yeah.
and brain fog.
Yeah.
And they're all connected. So, how do you as a physician, and what's next? You see those things, then what?
Well, we look at, what's causing the inflammation, because they're all connected by inflammation. If your brain is inflamed, you can't think straight, or you're anxious or depressed. If your body's inflamed, you can't lose weight. And the mitochondria, this is a biochemistry term, but mitochondria are your intercellular batteries. They're the energizer bunnies of your body that make energy. And they have the same structure as your cell membrane. They're made out of fat. So if your mitochondria are damaged by toxins, then you have leaky batteries and you can't make energy. And that's where fatigue comes from. And so it's all intimately connected. So, start by taking toxins out of your food, start by watching what you put on your skin. And then, for nutrition wise, number one, don't eat Frankenstein fats, which are adulterated, abnormal fats. You're just ingesting more of those things that are damaged in your body. It's like trying to build a house with termite laden wood. You can't do it. And those are the industrial vegetable oils, canola oil, corn oil. There's nothing wrong with omega-6. Some people talk about the omega-6 fatty acids as being bad. Omega-6 fatty acids are not bad. It's the ones that are available to us in the market are completely damaged from the processing that get them there. And so don't use those fats. Use coconut oil, ghee, avocado oil, olive oil. Don't use those unhealthy fats in your food. That's a huge step. And eat the healthy fats.
Great
Raw
advice.
nuts and seeds are an excellent source of healthy fat. Excellent source of healthy fat. And that gives you good, healthy building materials to rebuild healthy cells.
What's your advice on taking omega-3 supplements to help offset and create a better ratio of 3 to 6?
This is controversial. Are you ready
Okay.
I'm going to throw a wrench in this, because I
Yeah.
know I used to think that, I know the problem with the American, our American diet is that we get too many omega-6s and not enough omega-3s. I disagree. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is we have damaged omega-6s. See, the thing is, your cell membrane has a ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s of 4-1. And if you have a bunch of Frankenstein damaged fats that are these omega-6s that have been processed and heat damaged, then you cannot make up for damaged omega-6s by throwing in a bunch of omega-3s. It doesn't work. You need healthy fat all the way around. So one of the issues is a lot of the omega-3 supplements on the market are damaged also. These things are very sensitive to oxidation. They're like snowflakes. They get damaged easily. And so you can't just out supplement these damaged fats. You have to be able to remove them, and you have to put healthy fats in. So breast milk, right? So breastfed, babies have to triple their size in the first 9 months of their life. Breast milk has a omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 6 to 1. And so there's this unsuspecting misunderstanding that the problem with what we're doing is we have too many omega-6s. It's really that we're having these damaged omega-6s. Fried food isn't bad for you because of the calories. It's bad for you because it's damaged fat. When you heat these oils to super high temperature to fry them, now they're not the same structure anymore. They're melted plastic. So you're eating melted plastic.
Mm.
And your body can't make healthy cells with that. So the raw nuts and seeds have healthy omega-6s and omega-3s.
Love that. Okay, so it's a matter of getting the bad ones out of your diet, out of your cupboard right now. Another assignment. I hear another assignment coming for you, listeners. If you've got them in your cupboard still, go get them out and start replacing them. So I'm going to come back to that question again. So I know you said it's not the answer, but do you believe that most of us need an omega-3 supplement still? Oh, pregnant pause.
Most, no, I don't think most people do. I think some people do. I think
okay.
What I do with my patients, I have this, when they come to see me and I know that they've got this toxic damage, is I put them on a supplement that has both omega-6 and omega-3 in it.
Got it.
And that way they're giving the rate, they're giving at the ratio that's in the cell membrane, we're giving them the healthy fats to replace.
Awesome. Great tip. Great takeaway. Okay. Anything else? So I'm going to ask this for all of us who want immediate gratification. So if we start targeting the health of the receptors, how long can someone expect to take? I know, I'm so sorry, but the crystal ball question.
Yeah.
How long before we feel better?
Yeah, it's a journey. Well, if you're eating really bad and you make the change, you're going to feel good pretty fast. Okay. The hardest people are the ones who are already eating well or think they're eating well and they're not feeling good. Then they have toxic damage. And then it takes time. It just takes time. Things don't happen overnight. And you can't detox too fast because when you hear these people who talk about, oh, I'm going to go do this detox, right? Oh, let's do a detox, this summer detox or January detox. And they feel sick when they're doing it. And it's like, they're like, oh, wow, I'm really pulling toxins out because I feel bad. This is awesome, right? I'm really detoxing. Well, what's happening is they're actually causing more harm than benefit. If you feel sick, that means your body's overwhelmed. And so you really need guidance to make sure that you pull things out at the rate your body can handle. And you shouldn't feel sick.
And is that like my sprint versus your sprint? It's going to be different, the speed that each of us can handle?
Absolutely. That's why it's hard to do it yourself. If you have a guide that knows these things and can touch base with you and help you modify your plan based on what's going on. There's so many puzzle pieces to it.
Yeah, totally agree. I would have to just give listeners a little bit of insight. So I worked with private clients. I continue to do that, although we do a large membership. We have group programs online. I still do a handful of private clients and worked with people who were in this and going through a long-term detox, ready for exercise, but it's all such an integrated process. We were able to do more, and then we needed to back up of the exercise because she was in a heavier period of dumping and she could feel it. And it was like dancing with with someone who had fibromyalgia, where we don't quite ever know with absolute certainty, like we would maybe 90% of the time with someone apparently healthy, not dealing with that, what things are going to happen, what the reaction or response will be.
Right.
So
Yeah,
true.
you mentioned the fibromyalgia. So if any of the
Mhm.
listeners have um, fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or an autoimmune condition, those are big, big red flags that there's been major toxic damage. And so those are the people that really shouldn't try to do it on their own. If someone has had testing and they just need a few tweaks and they don't have any of those more serious things, then they might be able to do it themselves. But if there's something, if anybody has one of those diagnoses, those are big red flags that there's been major damage and it's your body's crying out for help.
Great tips. And I know there are listeners who are in that category. So feel free, if that is you, we'd love to hear from you. Leave a message in the show notes or a question. We're going to make sure that you know how to connect with Yvonne as well. Yvonne, I'd love to ask you one final question, kind of asking you to go back to when you were making your own personal healing journey. Were there specific things that helped you or supported you most as you were coming out of your own fatigue?
Yeah, sleep. Sleep was a
And
big one.
were you
I
able to do it, sleep deep and wake rested?
Well, the first step was to not get called by the hospital in the middle of the night. That was step number 1. Um, and then it took time. It took time. When I first started learning about functional medicine, I thought, oh, I'm going to be able to take supplements and do these other things, and that's going to help me support this lifestyle, this crazy lifestyle of an OBGYN. And then every conference I would go to would be like, but if you're not sleeping, you can't out supplement not sleeping. And I was like, okay. And then as these health issues started with me, I was like, okay, I need to sleep at night. I don't know what made me think that I could stay up all night and not have problems. So, but then you're right. Just not getting called doesn't mean you're sleeping deep. That's where actually the biggest, and I know you've probably had many people on talking about intermittent fasting, but my sleep actually improved dramatically when I started intermittent fasting.
Mhm.
And your exercise program is excellent for helping people sleep, because if when you're exercising, then you sleep better.
And which stronger program are you doing right now?
I'm doing Stronger 2 right now.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. Sweet. Okay. So, last but not least, you are the doctor, you are the expert. You see these women who are dealing with this mysterious, okay, I feel like I've done all the things and I deserve better results, but not getting
Mhm.
it. Is there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't?
I not really, Deb. We've covered a lot of things. I know we've bounced around a little bit, but it's just something that I'm so excited about. I'm a big hormone. I'm a hormone advocate. You know, but I just want people to realize that it's the icing on the cake. If you have a lot of other health problems, hormones will help you, but it's not the answer. You can't out hormone other issues. And so you really need the whole picture. And the biggest thing is, don't let anybody tell you that this is normal. Fatigue is not normal. Brain fog is not normal. Struggling with your weight is not normal. If you have those things and somebody says, yeah, but you're 50, that's normal for 50. Get a different doctor. That's baloney.
Goodbye. Yeah. Just don't let the door hit you on the way out, or do. I don't know. So good. It's been such a pleasure. Where is the best place for listeners to get more Yvonne?
Oh, well, I'm on social media. All my social media handles are at Yvonne Carney MD. So I'd love to have people connect with me there. And my website is vitalityrenewal.org. And on my website, I have a very cool hormone balance quiz. So this was a labor of love. I made this hormone balance quiz that screens for multiple different hormone imbalances, and then you get actionable items, things that you can do to help bring your hormones back in balance.
Beautiful. Okay. And I know there are many listeners who are going to want to do that. Listeners, I've got you covered. Got everything in the show notes because I know I'm hoping, well, you're commuting, you're walking, or you're lifting weights. And by the way, so Dr. Carney mentioned she's in Stronger 2. Don't write in and ask, how do I get access to Stronger 2? You actually, she's inside the cafe. So
Yes,
she went
I
through
love
Stronger and then she went to graduate school and joined our membership. And that's where Stronger 2 is behind the scenes. So just so that you know, I didn't want to
And I
raise
did
a
the
stir.
Stronger 3. I love Stronger 3. That's what made me like, okay, I got to do the cafe. I need more Deborah.
So good. Okay, and listeners, we have given you homework. So we've given you the homework. We'll have the link to go to the resource of EWG. So I would assign you to do this in your bathroom cabinet one day, do it in your kitchen another, do it in your
Great
wherever you
idea.
keep your cleaning supplies another. Don't overwhelm yourself, but just say, okay, one product a day until we've gotten through some things and kind of weeded things out. Just to start, that's all you have to do. And we'd love to hear from you as well if you've got questions. So you will find the show notes for today at flipping50.com/fix your hormones. And what are you waiting for? Let's start Flipping 50 today.